Hi, my name's Damien and welcome to GoFly Online. How to fill out your logbook. Pretty straightforward. When you're learning to fly, you'll get a logbook usually within the first 2 to 3 hours of your flight lessons. You'll either purchase one yourself or your flight school will organise one for you. Now, first thing to keep in mind is a logbook is a legal document. So you must look after it and fill out your flight time after every flight you do. First thing, we're going to look at a standard logbook. We use the Aviation Theory Centre logbook. Doesn't really matter what logbook you use, they're all fairly similar. But for today's example, we use the Aviation Theory Centre one. We're going to look at the first page, and this has all your particulars. Now, for the document to be legal, you need to have your name on here and your address. If you have anything like an ARN, which is an Aviation Reference Number, this needs to be here as well. Some logbooks need you to sign it. You would need to sign it as well for it to be a legal document. Put your address details on here just in case you lose a logbook in the future. Someone will know where to forward that logbook to return it to you. The next page on this particular logbook is a details page, giving you a bit more information on how to use a logbook. Have a really good look at this before you start using the logbook. A lot of useful information here. Next page we're going to look at is what we call a theory exam page. This page has all your exam details on it. For instance, when you're doing a recreational pilot certificate, you'll need to sit a pre-solo multiple choice exam before you go solo. If you pass the exam, this should be written in here. So the date, the type of exam it is, and signed off by your flight instructor. It'll break down on the page here what needs to be filled out. Now the reason we have this is one, to make sure that you've passed the exam before you move on to the next stage in your flying. It's a legal requirement as well. Plus, if you want to transfer your logbook and your training to another flight school, there's a record there of all the exams you've done. Plus, if you ever get audited one day by CASA, for instance, you've got detail there of what exams have been passed. Next page is previous experience page. Now, for instance, you might get to a stage where you might have, in 20 years' time, for instance, when you've had a career in aviation, you might be onto logbook number 4. Now, instead of having an employer or someone else having to go through the last 3 logbooks, you can transfer all your previous experience across to this previous experience page. Now, you just don't want to put it a total time. You want to break it up into a bit more detail. So what someone wants to see on this page is how many, for instance, single engine VFR time you've got, what instructional time you might have had, what flying time you might have had flying at night time, under the IFR or instrument conditions, or any multi-engine times. You want to break up that time so at a snapshot someone can look at that page and see the exact type of experience or varying experience you've had on different types of flying. Plus you also have a total there as well to give you an idea of the total aeronautical experience you have. So we've looked at the first few pages of your logbook. Let's now skip to our first page of our logbook. Now let's assume you've just started learning to fly and we're doing our first lesson, which is effects and controls. So when we look at this page, we can see on the top left hand side we need to put the year, which is at the moment 2021. Now we move to our first line and we can see it's broken up into different columns. Now if we look across, we've got the month, we have which is obviously the month that we're learning to fly, the day, which is a date, the type of aircraft we'll be learning to fly in a Sling 2 aircraft here at GoFly, the registration of the aircraft, the Sling 2 will be flying will be 7788, the pilot in command. Now when you're learning to fly, the instructor is a pilot in command. If you're flying solo, without an instructor, you're the pilot in command. The other pilot or crew, if you have an instructor, you'll be the other pilot or crew, so you're the student. The details of the flight, we then move across and we can see that we have different columns. All we're concerned about during your flight training is the single engine columns, either dual or command day. We'll be flying in the daytime under visual flight rules. So for this first lesson, which is effects controls, we'll run through it quickly. So it's January 12th, we're in a Sling 2, registration is 7788, pilot in command, I'll be the instructor, so it'll be D Wills. You're the student, so the other pilot or crew, you can put self in there, which is yourself, or you can put your name. The details of the flight will be effects or controls. Write the whole lot in there. You can summarize it, but it just looks better, I believe, if you write the whole sequence in there. And for the flight we did today, we did 1 hour, which is 1.0. So for most aircraft, we break the flight time into what we call Hobbs time, into point systems. So each 6 minutes is worth 0.1 of an hour. So for instance, 60 minutes would be 1 hour. If we're 54 minutes, that would be 0.9. If it was 66 minutes, this would be 1.1. So for today's flight, we'll say it's 1 hour. So we're right in the single engine dual day 1.0 for that flight. So now we're going to assume that we've done a full-time course with myself on the same aircraft, and we're going to pre-populate the logbook just for an example to see what's done up until we go solo. So we're looking on our day that we send you for your first solo flight, would be on January 19th in a Sling 2, Sling 7788. I'm the instructor, D Wills. You're the student, so put self, and we're going to put in their circuits. So let's assume after 5 circuits, so we're practicing our landings and takeoffs, that I deem that you're suitable and safe to go solo. So I'll get you to stop the aircraft, I get out, and then you go and do a solo circuit by yourself. So when we get back, we're going to fill out the logbook. So the first entry will be January 19th, circuits will be under dual, and let's just say that the time was 0.7 in the air. So we write in 0.7 under dual day for that entry. Then I always recommend leaving a line for your the solo entry, because you want it to stand out in your logbook, because it's a pretty special occasion when you do your first solo. So on this occasion, we're going to look on the logbook, we'll go under January 19th, Sling 2, Sling 7788. The pilot in command will now be yourself, so put self under command, and the details will be first solo. If we move across to the single engine, now let's just assume, a lot of students do this, we make a mistake in the logbook, and it's pretty common for the mistake to happen on your first solo because it's one column that changes. Now, the logbook being a legal document, we cannot use whiteout. So if you make a mistake, now let's just say we put in 0.3, which was our solo circuit time, under the dual day column, which we shouldn't have done. You need to cross it out with a cross, and because you're still a student, you need to get your instructor to initial or sign that cross out so we know it's a legitimate mistake. And then we can put the correct one, because it's a command, you're flying by yourself, it'll be under the command column, day 0.3. Now once you've got your license, if you make a mistake, once again, you can cross it out yourself and initial it yourself, because you don't need an instructor then. But if you're a student, make a mistake, you'll need them to sign off the mistake. If in doubt, ask your instructor. So we continue filling out a logbook after each flight. If we get to the bottom of the page, we also we can total up each column. So we've got a totals this page, and you'll notice on the logbook we also have totals brought forward from the previous page. So for instance, if we're on our second page, we would need to add the totals from the previous page onto that line. So for instance, in this example, we've got 24.2 hours for the dual day, and from the previous page, from the dual day, we did 7 hours. We'd add those two together to get a totals to date of 31.2 hours. That's the total amount of dual hours we've done since we've begun our flight training. For the command time, let's just say we did 4.2 hours on this page, 1 hour command time the day before. We would add these up to get a total of 5.2. We also have, if we move across to the left-hand side of the logbook, total flying this page, would be the total hours on that page, columns 1 to 14. We also have the grand total flying hours, so you'd add up any previous hours from the logbooks before, from columns 1 to 14. And then underneath it you have total aeronautical experience, which is the totals of columns 1 to 14 plus column 16, which generally includes any instrument simulated time. And that's your total time. Very important also that you get your instructor, once you learn to fly, to certify that each page is correct. On the bottom left-hand side of the logbook, we can see that we have entry certified correct. Get your instructor or the chief pilot to certify that that page is correct. We can see here I've signed it, put in the CFI, my ARN, and the date that was certified. Very important to make sure the instructor does that when you complete each page. Well, I hope I made the actual methodology of filling out a logbook a bit more simplified for you. Once again, if in doubt on how to fill it out, please consult with your flight instructor. Happy and safe flying, and see you next time.